Good morning, everybody. We like to do a lot of towels, and when you first get an embroidery machine, that's really what you start working on. And sometimes we get great results, and sometimes we don't get great results. And so we're going to talk about the different things that you use for towels. Here's a really ugly orange towel. So when you want to, let's talk about where to place the embroidery design, because a lot of times people like, okay, you want to give a towel, put monograms or a design or whatever, and you want to put it on there. You want to embroider on it. So first of all, you want to embroider on the opposite side of where the tag is. I have done that many times, but you know what? I just cut the tags out. No one's going to know. Unless you're giving it a gift, you probably should tell them how to wash it. Where do you place the design? Because that can be a problem. Or where do you want to place it? It depends on how big it is. If it's a big bath sheet, you know, those great big ones, we're going to be talking about the bottom of the design. Not the middle, not the top, but you want it centered on the towel. So usually what I do is I will fold it in half and mark it. I'm just going to mark it with a pin for now. And I'm just going to put a couple of pins here. And I'll show you why in a minute. Okay. Then, if it's a bath towel, you want the bottom of the design to be 4 inches above the hem of it, the bottom of it. Or if it has a border, see how this one's got a little stripe, little border. Sometimes they have a band of a woven, which I think is terrible, because when you wash these things, the bands and the borders all shrink in, and you have like towels that shape like that. Looks terrible. Okay, so if it has a border, you want it to be 3 inches above the border is where you want the bottom of your design to be. Okay, if it's a bath towel, a regular size bath towel, same thing. If it doesn't have a border on it, 4 inches above the bottom, or if it has a border, you want it only 2 inches above the border. So you would have your border here, you want it about 2 inches above. Okay, so then you have a hand towel or a tea towel, dish towels, they're all the same, 2 inches above the hem or 1.5 inches above the border. So let's see, where am I getting that information from? This was something I had gotten from embroideryonline.com, which is an OESD company, and they had a sheet like this, and it's got all kinds of information, and down here it's telling you where to put monograms, and that's where I got that. Okay, let's see, washcloths. I rarely put anything on a washcloth because they're just too small, but sometimes you want to put just a single letter, then you can. For a washcloth, you want it to be, where'd it go, is 1.5 inches above the bottom or 1 inch above the band, or the border. So pretty much that's where you place your designs. Now, speaking of the type of the designs that you want to put on a towel, you want the design to be appropriate for the towel. You don't want it to be like a red work or a single line, you know, where it's just, or like a, you know, where it's just outlined, or a real skinny zigzag, you know, like if you're doing a monogram and you pick the really tiny, not tiny letters. Also, you don't want tiny letters. You're never going to see them. They're going to dig right into the pile. No matter how well you put stabilizer, eventually when you wash that thing, the pile is going to just completely cover those 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch letters. You want letters on a towel to be at least 1 inch high, and some decent width to that satin stitch. You don't want it to be really tiny because it's just going to dig right in. Ideally, you should select lettering that is digitized for towels. There's not a whole lot of them. I think on John Deere's site, which is Adorable Ideas, or it's called, I think he keeps changing the name of his site. I think it's embroiderylegacy.com now is the new name of it. Or I think even Embroidery Library, Designs in Machine Embroidery, which is Eileen Roche, has some excellent designs, excellent letters, especially monograms that are digitized for towels. Why do you want it digitized for towels? Okay, there's things called underlayment. And so let's just do a bar, like say this is an eye, okay? And your satin stitches are going, can you see, guys see that? And your satin stitches are going this way. There's different kinds of underlayment, and for towels they need to be knocked down. So there's the zigzag that goes this way, okay? Then there's a contour which goes around the edge of the design. That's a contour. Some digitizing software will allow you to pick the kind of underlayment that you want to put in your lettering. Others don't. Then there's some that go this way. Then there's one called a lattice, which has all of these plus diagonal. So it's got a lot of scaffolding to build on. And what that does is it knocks down the pile of the towel so that they don't show through when it's being washed. One problem with towels, especially if you're using a design that is not optimized for towels, you get something called bearding, which means as you wash it, up come the fibers through the stitching, and it looks like you've got lint on top of your embroidery. It's much like quilting. It's called bearding. Except bearding is on the back on a quilt, it's on the front on a towel, and it'll eventually show through any kind of fill stitch that you have. Hey, I look like I'm left-handed. That's cool. Okay. So anyway, so ideally, if you have the ability to digitize your own, but this is what you want to look for. Most of the things we embroider are not optimized for towels, so what do? Okay, there's different ways you can handle it. It's going to be in your topping. Okay, so let's talk about the toppings. With and without a topping. Say you do this straight line. With the topping, it's going to look straight along the edges. Without a topping, it's going to be jagged. So instead of getting a straight eye, you're going to get a jagged eye because it depends on where it falls in the pile. So the different types of toppings will help correct that. And so, okay, what can you use for topping? There's all kinds of things you can use. Our favorite is to use a water-soluble stabilizer, and it dissolves away completely with water. Okay, the problem with that is it does give you nice straight stitching. The problem with it is when you wash it, this dissolves away and it beards through. Because with towels, if you don't have those thick underlayment stitches, you're going to want to have a barrier, not only just a topping, but you're going to need a barrier to hold the pile back when that towel is being washed. So what can you use as a barrier? Let me turn this up a minute. Okay, there's this one, it's called Press and Seal, and it looks and feels like plastic. And let me get out my pressing mat, because you just place it on the top. Now this acts as a barrier, and mostly it tears away just like the topping. However, it doesn't get in between, you know, it will stay. And you can wash it, and this acts like a barrier. So, let's see. But when you want to get rid of it, you just hit it with an iron. Is that hot enough? Not yet. Okay, good, there. Oh my God, it sticks to the iron and it goes away. But if you take it and you just roll it, I should have done this on a paper towel. Let me do this. That's not a good idea to do that. Don't do this on a wool mat, it sticks to it. Okay, another thing you can do is you can use bridle tooling, not netting. Netting is too far apart. You can use bridle tooling, and then so just before you stitch, you use this as a topping. Okay, also the press away topping. You can't use that on fleece or anything nylon, because the heat that is required to take it off is also going to it's going to melt your fabric, so that's not a good thing. You also don't want to use it for a really open design, because you have to have direct connection between that hot iron and the press away topping in order to pull it away. So an open design like lace work or something like that, the iron can't get into those little crevices, so therefore you see that shiny part sticking through. Now the bridle tooling is a good one to use too, because it acts as a barrier. I usually use this in combination with this, because this makes it really good. This still leaves a little bit of jaggedness. So when you pull it away, there's a little bit of jaggedness, but not much, and this just corrects the rest of it. And then I would embroider right on top of that, and then pull this away, wet it away, and this you just simply, you can pull it away if it's a tight enough stitch. If not, just do a really tight cutting around it, and you're not going to see it. You can't see it at all. And so that's, oh, and then there's another thing called a knockdown stitch, and some towel designs have a knockdown stitch. And what is that? And where's my piece of, there we go. Okay, say we were doing this eye, okay? What a knockdown stitch does, and that's usually, you can do a knockdown stitch in Brilliance. It's now called Embrilliance. It's the old Designers Gallery Embroidery Works or Creator, but it's also in the Embrilliance. Knockdown stitches. So like here's where our eye would be. This would be the satin stitch. And then what a knockdown stitch is, before it stitches this out, it'll come out about this far, and it will stitch over here all the way through it. It'll stitch all the way across and take more, and it's rather dense. And then you put your letter on top of it, or your design on top of it. I don't like those. They really show. Let's talk about stabilizer first. The stabilizer I like to use with a towel is because of the fact that once it's washed, there's no more support behind it. I like to use rinse away, tear away. If you remember, I don't like using a cutaway, because who wants that white ring or whatever ring around the back of that fabric? That's going to look ugly. And I don't want to use a tearaway, because now when you wash that towel, that shape is going to be misshapen. It's going to look terrible. So what I like about this one, this is that rinse away, tear away stabilizer. And I'm going to just hoop my stabilizer for now. I may have to go back and put the towel in it. This is the rinse away, tear away stabilizer. And why I like that is because most tearaway is made with cellulose, in other words paper, where the rinse away, tear away is using rayon fibers, little tiny short rayon fibers, and you'll know you have it is if you dip it in some water. You don't want to drip all over the place. And as you pull it apart, see the little fibers stick out? Can you see those little fibers? Those are nylon fibers. They're not completely dissolving away. And those stay inside the design and help support the design. Is it as good as a cutaway? No. Is it? But it's much better than just leaving a tearaway. So you have a little bit of something behind there to help support those stitches and help them keep their shape when it's being laundered. Okay, so here we go. I've just hooped my stabilizer. Okay, so other topping is, I don't know if I have any. It's called dry cover up. I don't have it here. Or if it isn't, it looks just like the press away, and it can come in colors, but it looks like plastic, and it acts just like a tearaway, but it doesn't wash away at all, and it's actually a barrier for color. It comes in white. I think my roll is a big, I had a big roll of white, and I don't know where I did with it. The problem with the dry cover up is if you have an open design, you'll see that plastic sitting on the top, so it acts almost like the press away topping, only it completely doesn't go away. What I do like the white one for, or whatever colors, is if I'm layering something, I will use the white one like in the, if I'm using red fabric and say I'm putting snowflakes or a snowman on the top, because it also acts like a color barrier, because you know white thread is sort of opaque and you can see the color through it. Then I'll also use the dry cover up. And you can get that from other stores. In the past, we had to use dry cleaner bags as a topping. That's the very first one we ever had lots of years ago. So can you still use it? Yeah, but don't put your iron on it. That'll make a real mess. It'll never come off. Okay, so what I like to do with my towels, because another problem with towels, especially if you put Solvay on it as the foot, I'll use one of these feet to show you. Okay, this isn't an embroidery foot, but what happens with Solvay is the fact that when you're stitching along, this tends to do this, and as it's moving around, this will wrap around the foot, and you end up with a mess, okay? Because your pile is too high and it's wrapping around your foot, and again, it can cause a mess. On your machine, when we go to the machine, I'll show you where you can change the height of your presser foot because you want your presser foot to just skim just above the but if your towel is too thick, you have a problem. What I like to do, which solves that so you don't have to change the height of your presser foot, because I'll never remember to put it back, is if you take spray starch, ordinary heavy spray starch, and yes, it's backwards, but it's just ordinary spray starch. Spray it, let that sit a couple seconds. Then you take your hot iron, and wherever you are going to stitch, you're going, and you use glass head pins if you leave the pins there, like I just did. Almost all my pins are glass headed. Oh, now it comes off. Okay, it came off on the towel. Now it got hot enough finally. It came off on the towel, and you can see the little beads there. They'll wash out. Okay, and you flatten the pile where you're going to stitch till that spray starch is dry. And what that does is it spreads out the fibers. So even if you don't have enough underlayment built into the design, you can go ahead, it'll flatten them out, and the needle's going to catch the yarns, and it's going to help keep it flat. Now, placing this. I know some of you guys do not like using templates. I love my templates. Because if I were hooping this, here it is. Okay, so here's my pins. So I would put this in half. Okay. Now, you can use this. You're going to put this so that you can see the letters A, B, C facing you, so you can read the letters, and you just place it in. So now you've got a good idea here where this is your embroidery stitching area. Your whole, where the grid is your stitching area. But, you know, because if you notice, we could use these notches right here as our center, but guess what? The center of your embroidery field is not exactly in line with it. It's close enough for today, though. So then I would take my spray adhesive, okay, say I want this 2 inches above, so let me measure. 2 inches is about, or 1.5 inches because it's a hand towel, about 1.5 inches above the border. So I need it to be, here's the bottom, so I can't put this here because this is not, you know, or I can't put it here because now you can't stitch any lower than this. So I'm going to move it up. And I'll just center it in here. So now, pull this away, and I center this and stick it down. And then I place the rest down. And now it's stuck. Now, when I do this, I don't have this hooped, because now the movement of the hoop is going to, get this out of here before I cause any problems with the water. This is going to pull away. Just moving it around, the weight of the towel is going to pull it away from the adhesive. Because I like this KK 2001 better than the 505 spray, because 505 spray stays sticky until you wash it. This one, the KK 2000, goes away with air, so after 2 hours there's no more sticky and you don't have to worry about washing that towel in order to give it away as a gift. Okay, then you would put your topping on it. However, the problem, like I said, it pulls away, so that's when I would get the pins. Pin it to the outside of your hoop in a few places, especially the corners. See how I'm pinning this to the outside, to right here? I'm pinning it right there on all the edges. And I'm just going to use those. And now, if it's going to pull, it's going to pull to the outside of the frame and not interfere with the foot. It's not going to get stuck. And see, now it pulls, it's pulling. Oh, and I'll do one at the top. There's a lot here. Is there any? No, there's nothing to put it there. Okay. So now when you pull, it's not pulling it away from the center, it's pulling outside of the hoop. All of the pressure is on the outside of this hoop, and it doesn't interfere. Then I would go to my machine and I would still put a basting stitch down. So let's go to the machine and let's show you some of the settings that you use in order to do a towel. So, okay, let's talk about some of these the setting pages. I think we had talked about before what some of these do. I'm just going to pick a letter over here, and I'm just going to pick, well, let's pick the I, or I'll put an F there, a big F, and I want a large one. That's good. Okay, there's my letter. Okay, that we're going to stitch. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and put a basting stitch on there and say this is all I'm going to stitch is this letter. And so I'm going to go to, oh, not here, it's going to be on the next one, my edit screen, and this icon that looks like this will add a basting stitch to it. Okay, so what that's going to do is it's going to stitch this shape first. I'll go plus or minus, go to the next one, and then it's going to do the letter. Now this, I'm using the built-in letters, and you can sort of see where that underlayment is. See how you can see? It doesn't have a lot of underlayment on there. It looks like it goes through the middle and a few stitches here and there. Nothing too fancy. So I'm going to go back to 0. Well, let's go ahead and stitch this one. Well, I hooped it upside down, but we'll now see how I fix this. I didn't pay attention to what side it was. I'm going to take it out anyway, so got my stabilizer. Okay. Now, I need to flip that design around because it's backwards, or I have hooped it wrong. Okay, so I'm going to go to Edit, Rotate 90 and 90. Flips the whole thing around. Okay. And I am going to move it. That would be down here. I want to target on the bottom of the design. So you can see right here the little green dot. That means it's targeting the bottom center of the design. So I have my center, and I'm going to move it, and I'm going to, let's see, I don't have a snowman handy. Okay, I don't have a snowman handy, so we're going to target this the old-fashioned way. I want the bottom of this design to be about 1.5 inches. Okay, and remember it's targeted on the bottom center. And I'm guessing that's about the center right there. There's my bottom center. I'm taking those pins out, don't worry. I just wanted to target it. I'm going to use a combination of my orange tooling so it'll match in here. And I've got black, I believe, in there. And I'm going to put the salvie on the top. Okay. Then I'm going to stitch it. Okay. And lower my presser foot. It is now ready to stitch. And I'm just going to hold it down because it's going to stitch the outline. I don't know. It's working now. I'll just hold it in place. Or if it doesn't want to hold in place, I'll just pin it to the outside. And see, it wants to wrap. That's why you always want to hold. Sometimes you can just, it'll stick. No, not today. Oh, bobbin thread. No, it isn't. Yeah, see, it looks like the bobbin thread's coming up, but it isn't. What that is the salvie covering it. It's being drawn into the stitch. That's okay, that'll all dissolve away. Okay. Except now, well, there you get to see it is down. See, okay. See how that wrapped around there and took that out? I'm going to go to the settings page, okay, which is this icon up here. And I'm going to find where it says embroidery foot height. Where is it? There it is. I'm going to raise that up a little bit. Okay. Now, that should raise it up. See, now it's a little higher. I mean, it's already broken, but hopefully it'll fix it. No, it's broken. This is why you want the basting stitch on there. Okay, it's done anyway. Okay. And now we'll take it out, and this mostly comes away. Okay, and I'll take just a dab of water, and that'll dissolve the rest of that away. And then the bridle tooling doesn't want to cut away, doesn't want to tear away, so I'm going to cut it away. And you really can't even see that it's there. Come here. There's the end. Remember, this has not been digitized for toweling, but we can still use it. In fact, I'm not even going to pull it out of the middle of that F. Okay, let's take a close look at this. Let's see, the salvie was broken over here at the top. See how it's a little bit jagged right here where there was no salvie. There is a little bit, the tooling though is holding it up, holding the threads up. And then if I take a little, I'll just take this, and this will dissolve the rest of that salvie away. There, see, it's dissolving away. Whoops, can't see it. See, that's dissolving away. There's a little piece here that's not dissolved yet. Or that could be some of the plastic stuff stuck to it. And so now it gives you a much better look to it. Here, I'll turn it the other way. F for forward. And so now you get a better stitch out. See, you can see, here's where I had salvie intact. Here's where I didn't. See how that now is a little blurred? The sides are blurred as it, you can tell I had it in through here. I don't have salvie here, I don't have salvie here, and I don't have salvie there, and those edges are jagged. Yes, I love my templates. Templates are awesome. And I'm really sad that they do not put them in the new machines, because I love them. Okay, so towels are the easiest thing to do. You can go like to a thrift shop and get towels, and you can get them for cheap, next to nothing, and you can practice the different techniques on anything that you like. You know, so whatever you want to stitch, it helps to always do a sample first. So I always have a big towel around that I don't use for anything, or an old towel that you're ready to throw out, and use that for doing your stitch outs. Who makes rinse away, tear away? Almost everybody does. Remember, there's only a couple manufacturers of this stuff in the entire world. Baby Lock makes it. They all have one that could be, they call it different names, but look for the one that says that it rinses away. It is a tear away. It does tear away, but it's got those fibers. And I think all the manufacturers have their version of it. Peggy asked, why did I use tooling? I use tooling as a barrier. And what happens with even the rinse away, tear away, or the solvy, everything but with dry cover up, you need a barrier with thick plush towels. The cheap Walmart ones like this, you don't have to have the tooling, because the thick ones, as you wash the design, the threads, you know, the yarns from the pile work its way through the stitching, and it looks like you've got lint on top of your embroidery. So that's why we put a barrier down. Tooling is not necessarily a topping, it's a barrier to hold those yarns down, keep them flat. Like I said, you're more likely to keep them flat if you spray start your towel, the area you want to stitch, and flatten the yarn so that the needle has a greater chance of catching the threads and holding them down. You still have to use a topping when you use tooling though. So, okay, I'm losing my connection. I don't know what's happening, so we'll probably go ahead and end this. If you have any questions, let me know. Have a great weekend. Sew up a storm like yesterday. And you guys, you just take care and be safe, and I love you all. Bye.